are moments when the sky just rips open, when the life you so carefully built, the one you planned down to the last detail, feels like it asks being washed away in a flood you never saw coming. It might be a phone call in the middle of the night, a letter in the mail, a single sentence from someone you trust that just shatters everything. And suddenly, you're standing in a torrential downpour. The wind is howling, the water ass rising, and the familiar landscape of your life is gone, replaced by a churning, chaotic sea. In that moment of pure crisis, your instincts scream that you have only two choices. You can let the water crush you, surrender to the cold and the dark, and just get pulled under. Or you can fight. You can scream at the storm, punch the waves, and try to build a dam against the flood with your bare, bleeding hands. But what if there is a third choice? What if the way forward isn't about sinking, and it isn't about fighting? What if, standing there soaked and freezing, you realize the only thing left to do is learn to dance?
This isn't a story about avoiding pain. It is a story about walking right into it. It is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It is about understanding that the storms of life don't happen to you. They happen for you. They rain not here to drown you. They rain here to teach you a new rhythm, to forge you into someone stronger than you ever imagined. This is the story of how we can turn any downpour into a dance, and how our deepest pain can become our greatest partner.
Let me take you back to my storm. It wasn't a single thunderclap. It was a slow-moving hurricane that gathered force for months. It all started with a business I poured my soul into for almost a decade. It was more than a job, it was my identity. It was proof of all the late nights, missed holidays, and relentless sacrifice. I built it from an idea on a napkin into something real, something that supported not just me, but a small team I thought of as family. The first sign of trouble was a little tremor in the market, a shift I told myself was temporary. We ride it out. I told my team, my voice full of a confidence I definitely didn't feel. But the tremor became an earthquake. Sails slowed, then just stopped. Climbed too deep in with us for years started pulling back. Their voices full of apology, but their decisions final. The numbers on my spreadsheets, once a source of pride, became a daily punch to the gut. Every red number was like a drop of freezing rain, seeping right into my bones. I chose the second option. I chose to fight. I declared war on that storm. My days became a frantic blur. I worked 18, then 20 hours. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. My diet was stale coffee and pure, panicked adrenaline. I pushed my team harder, my desperation creating a toxic pressure that strained the very family I was trying to save. I was everywhere at once, plugging one leak only to have 3 more spring up behind me. I was the captain of a sinking ship, absolutely convinced I could bail out the ocean with a bucket. The personal toll was huge. I became a ghost in my own home. My conversations with my family were hollow because my mind was always somewhere else, calculating, worrying, strategizing. I saw the concern in their eyes, that mix of love and fear, but I just saw it as a lack of faith. You don't understand. I say, putting up a wall, I have to fix this. The breaking point came on a gray Tuesday afternoon. I was on the phone with our biggest client, who I thought was our last hope. I'd spent a week crafting a proposal I was sure would turn the tide. And for a few minutes, it seemed to be working. Then came the words, polite and professional, but they landed like a physical blow. We've decided to go in a different direction. I don't remember hanging up. I just remember the silence. The roar of the storm in my head suddenly went quiet, replaced by a deafening emptiness. I looked around my office at the awards on the wall, the photos of my team, the whiteboards covered in a month of failed ideas. It was a museum of my failure, and in that moment, the fight just left me. The exhaustion I'd been holding back for months washed over me in one crushing wave. I put my head in my hands, and for the first time, I didn't try to stop the flood. I just let it pull me under. That asks the anatomy of a storm. It asks not just what happens on the outside. It asks the collapse on the inside. It asks the moment the story you tell yourself about who you are shatters against the rocks of reality. My story was that I was a builder, a fighter, a winner. That hard work always paid off. That any problem could be solved if you were just smart enough, relentless enough. But the storm taught me a brutal lesson. Some things are out of your control. Some waves are too big to fight. And when you pour all your energy into resisting what has already happening, you don't just fail, you break. I'd been operating under a false choice. Crumble or fight. Sink or swim against a tidal wave. Both paths led to the same place. Total burnout. One is a passive surrender. The other is an active one. But both are born from the idea that the storm is an enemy to be defeated. And both will drain you of every last drop of energy you have. This is a universal experience. Maybe for you, it wasn't your business. Maybe it was the end of a relationship, a health diagnosis, a betrayal, or a dream that just died. The details are different, but the feeling is the same. The ground gives way, the sky falls, and you lay left in the ruins, wondering how you'll ever survive. You feel totally alone. But pain, in its rawest form, is one of the most universal things that connect us as humans. The problem isn't the storm itself. Storms will always come. The problem is our relationship to it. We see pain as an enemy and chaos as a mistake. So we exhaust ourselves trying to get back to a feeling of order and comfort that was never guaranteed. We resist what is, and what you resist persists. The more I fought the storm, the more power I gave it. My struggle was its fuel. My refusal to accept reality was the very thing destroying me. I was drowning, not because of the rain, but because I had forgotten how to just let go.
For weeks, I just existed in that fog. The world felt muted and far away, like I was watching it from behind a thick wall of glass. The fire that drove me for so long was gone, replaced by a cold, heavy ash in my gut. Getting out of bed was a monumental effort. I was lost, replaying every mistake, every missed sign, every wrong turn. The storm had passed, but it had left me stranded in a wasteland. My healing didn't start with some grand epiphany. It started quietly. One afternoon, I couldn't stand the silence of my house anymore, so I just went for a walk with no destination. It had been raining, a gentle drizzle, and the city was washed clean. I ended up in a small, nearly empty park. I sat on a drenched bench, not caring that I was getting wet. I saw an old man a short distance away, standing perfectly still under a tree, his face tilted up towards the sky with his eyes closed. He wasn't trying to stay dry, he was just feeling it. A few feet from him, a little girl in bright yellow rain boots was doing the exact opposite. She was gleefully stomping in a huge puddle, sending sprays of water everywhere. She wasn't enduring the rain, she was playing with it. And then it hit me, not like a bolt of lightning, just a quiet thought from somewhere deep inside. They are not fighting the rain. The old man was accepting it. The little girl was engaging with it. Neither of them was trying to stop it or wish it away. They were in the same rain, but having a completely different experience. That simple observation was the key that unlocked the door to my mental prison. I had been so focused on the storm as this one giant, destructive force, I failed to see the individual raindrops. I was so obsessed with waiting for the sun, I missed the experience of the rain itself. And then the question that changed everything popped into my head. What if the goal isn't to wait for the storm to pass, but to learn to dance in the rain? That one question reframed my entire struggle. The last few months hadn't been a war I had lost. They had been a dance I didn't know the steps to. I had been hearing a chaotic, terrifying noise, but all along it was music, a wild and difficult rhythm for sure, but a rhythm nonetheless. This is the huge mindset shift. Pain is not the enemy. Discomfort isn't a signal that something is wrong. It asks a signal that growth is happening. We spend our lives trying to build shelters and find comfort, but a life without discomfort is a life without growth. A muscle has to tear to grow stronger. A seed has to break through dark, resistant earth to reach the light. As Helen Keller said, character can be developed in ease and quiet. Only through trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened. This is where we redefine our relationship with pain. We stop seeing it as a punishment and start seeing it as a partner. Think of a riptide at the beach. Your first instinct is to swim frantically against it. back to shore. But any experienced swimmer knows that that's the fastest way to drown. Fighting the current just drains your energy. The way to survive is to swim with it, parallel to the shore, until you ray out of its pull. You don't defeat the current, you navigate it. Pain is that current. Trying to fight it head on is a losing battle. Dancing means learning to move with it. It means accepting reality without surrendering to it. Acceptance isn't resignation. Resignation is giving up. Acceptance is just acknowledging the dance floor you've been given. And it turns out there is a name for this. Psychologists call it post-traumatic growth, or PTG. Unlike resilience, which is about bouncing back to where you were, PTG is when people who go through intense struggle actually find positive growth that takes them beyond where they were before. They don't just bounce back. They bounce forward. The pioneers in this field, Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, found that this growth usually shows up in 5 key ways. A greater appreciation for life, warmer relationships, a bigger sense of personal strength, seeing new possibilities for your life, and spiritual growth. In other words, the trauma itself becomes the catalyst for a more meaningful life. The storm doesn't just pass. It waters the seeds of a new landscape inside you. This isn't just a poetic idea. Neuroscience shows us that adversity can physically change our brains through neuroplasticity. The process of actively overcoming adversity, of learning to dance, strengthens the neural pathways that help us regulate our emotions and make better decisions. You are literally rewiring your brain to handle stress more effectively. The struggle, the dance, is what forges that new strength. When I started to see my failure through this lens, the whole story changed. It was no longer I lost everything. It became I was freed from everything. I had been so attached to a single version of my identity, the successful entrepreneur, that I was imprisoned by it. The storm didn't just tear down my business. It tore down the walls of that prison. It forced me to ask a terrifying but liberating question. If I am not that, then who am I? The pain wasn't just a destructive force. It was a teacher, a brutally honest mentor that showed me all the flaws in my approach to life. It taught me my worth isn't tied to my net worth. It taught me that relentless fighting, born of ego and fear, only leads to burnout. It taught me humility. It showed me that vulnerability isn't a weakness, but a requirement for real connection. The pain was the guardian at the gate to my next level. It stood there, demanding I let go of the person I thought I was, so I could become the person I was meant to be. I had been trying to slay the guardian, but the real task was to listen to it. The real task was to learn its dance.
Learn to dance in the rain is a beautiful idea. But what does it actually look like when you ray in the middle of your own hurricane? The dance isn't some flawless performance. It has a series of clumsy, awkward, and often painful steps. It asks learning to move again after being paralyzed by fear. After that moment in the park, I didn't magically become a graceful dancer. My first steps were shaky. For me, the dance began with brutal honesty. The first step is acceptance without judgment. For weeks, my mind had been a courtroom where I was both prosecutor and defendant, endlessly relitigating my failure. The dance required me to fire the prosecutor. I had to accept the facts. The business was gone. The money was lost. I had made mistakes. These were just the conditions on the ground, not a final verdict on my life. I started by writing it all down, not as a confession, but as a neutral inventory, listing every mistake, every bad decision, every external factor. Getting it on paper allowed me to see it not as who I was, but as something that had happened. This wasn't about blame. It was about clarity. It asked looking at the puddle you rain and just saying, okay, this is water. This is where I am. The second step is finding the rhythm in the chaos. The storm isn't just noise. It has information. My pain was trying to tell me something, but I had been too busy screaming back to listen. So I started asking new questions. Instead of why me, I started asking, what is this teaching me? I started journaling, not just about how I felt, but about the lessons hidden in the pain. The rhythm of my storm had a clear beat. My obsession with external validation had made me internally fragile. My fear of failure had practically guaranteed it. My definition of success was suffocating me. Listening to this rhythm was painful, but it held the instructions for my next steps. It told me I needed to redefine my values, reconnect with my family, and build a life that was strong from the inside out. Not just one that looked good on paper. The third and most crucial step is the choice to move. This is where the dance really starts. Acceptance and listening are passive. Movement is active. It asks the conscious decision to take a step, any step in a new direction. For me, this was terrifying. I had no map. My confidence was shattered. So I started small, ridiculously small. My first dance move was making my bed in the morning. It was a tiny act of order in a world of chaos. A small promise to myself that I wasn't giving up. Then it was a walk every single day, rain or shine. It was about getting my body moving again, even when my mind wanted to stay frozen. Then came a bigger step. I called every single person from my old team, not to make excuses, but to apologize. I own my part in the collapse, my poor leadership, the pressure I did put on them. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My voice shook. I expected anger, and I got some, but mostly, I got grace. This act of moving towards the relationships I damaged instead of away from them in shame, began to heal something deep inside me. It taught me that dancing in the rain often means dancing with other people. This is the transformation. Dancing wasn't about launching a bigger, better business. It was about rebuilding myself, one intentional step at a time. It meant taking a simple job to pay the bills that gave me time to heal. It meant having long, honest conversations with my family. It meant finding joy not in achievement, but in just being present in the taste of coffee, the warmth of the sun, the sound of laughter. I wasn't trying to conquer the world anymore. I was just trying to live in it. And this leads to the moral of the dance. Life will constantly throw storms at you that asks a guarantee. There will be loss, failure, and pain. You can't control the weather. You can only control your response. The power you have is in choosing your dance. So what does your dance look like? It looks like choosing acceptance over resistance. It means letting go of the need to control everything and focusing only on what you can control. Your attitude, your choices, your next small step. It looks like embracing discomfort as part of growth. When you feel the burn of a challenge, you learn to see it not as a threat, but as proof that you're getting stronger. You lean into it. It looks like being relentless in your choice to keep moving, no matter how small the step. This is how you forge an unbreakable spirit. You don't wait for motivation. You move, and movement creates motivation. And maybe most important, it looks like letting go of the heavy rocks you carrying the regrets, the resentments, the ghosts of past failures. You can dance when you chained to the ground. Letting go is a fierce, necessary act of self-liberation. It asks the moment you decide your future is more important than your past. The person who emerges from the storm is never the same as the person who entered it. The struggle isn't just an obstacle on the path. The struggle is the path. It asks the very process that shapes you. Every challenge you've faced, every tear you've shattered, every moment you thought you'd break but didn't. It was all part of your training. It was teaching you the steps.
If this story, this idea of turning pain into power, hits home for you and the storm you're in right now, please know you are not alone. This community is a place where we share our struggles and our dances. If this message helped you, please consider liking and sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. And subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the struggle. Your support helps these messages reach more people who are standing in their own rain, just waiting for permission to dance.
Life is not a calm sea in a sunny sky. It has a dynamic, unpredictable, and often turbulent force. It will rain, the winds will howl, the ground will shake, There is no umbrella that can keep you dry forever. You can spend your life building walls and running for shelter, living in fear of the next cloud. You can exhaust yourself fighting every wave and cursing every drop of rain, growing bitter from the constant battle. Or you can change the goal. You can accept that the rain is part of life. You can understand that pain isn't a detour from your path. It is the path. You can choose to see every challenge not as a burden, but as a beat. Every setback not as a defeat, but as a new step to learn. You can decide that suffering is not your identity, but your teacher. True strength isn't found in the absence of storms. It asks for it in the heart of them. It has discovered when you stop asking life to be easier and start choosing to become stronger. It has realized the moment you stop waiting for the storm to pass, and you finally, bravely, lift your head, feel the rhythm, and begin to move. The storm doesn't define you. Your dance does.